Hello, dear friends. Welcome to our first ever stream on our Facebook group, which is the Dmitry Nikitin School Facebook group dedicated to teachers and to continuing professional development of a wide teaching community in Russia and maybe internationally, because we are speaking English today. And we are going to run streams like that. How exciting, so experimental, because it turned out we know so many nice people who have a lot of ideas to share, and we all have limited time, and that's why we decided to run them once in 2 weeks. So bi-weekly, we are going to run the streams with different ELT celebrities like Maureen McGarvey and other nice people. We'll publish the plan a bit later, but we will concentrate on preparing the first stream, which is going to be experimental. So if something goes wrong, please forgive us. It's not us, it's the gray zone of unknown. That's great understanding that you have the gray zone of unknown, isn't it, Maureen? We're going to talk for half an hour or so, and later on we are going to tell you in advance what the topic is going to be and collect questions from you. So, and today, let's try to have an experimental stream with Maureen McGarvey, our good friend and educational consultant from London, an invited academic, director of the Dmitry Nikitin School, and a freelance language and ELT enthusiast. I just created your new title, Maureen.
I like it.
I like it as well. Maureen is famous because she has her Russian name, Marina Danilovna. Marina Danilovna. It sounds powerful, isn't it, Maureen?
I certainly feel powerful with it.
So, could you please tell us about your, oh, that's a dangerous word, Russian connections. Russian connections. When did you start working with Russian teachers? What's your experience? Do you see any differences between Russian ELT community and international ELT community?
Oh, a lot of questions all at once. I suppose I properly started working with Russian teachers before you invited me to come to Russia, which was, I think, 14 months ago, because it was my last trip before the UK went into lockdown. And we met and we talked about a number of things while you were in the UK. And then I came out to Russia to do some training with the School Owners Forum, I think it was, Dmitry Sergeyevich?
That was a training for school owners on, I think, on school culture actually, and
that's right,
on
and CPD,
performance management,
and CPD, and I did that in Moscow, and then I came to Yaroslavl to work with your teachers and your admin and management team in your school for a couple of days. And since then, I've been fortunate enough to retain my contact with the Dmitry Nikitin School and teachers as invited academic director. And we've been working very closely together over the past 12 months on quite a long-term and fascinating project, looking at working with and developing a school culture and an organisational culture, which is something I'm very interested in and something which I think is relevant to all school owners and all staff who work in schools. I've also been doing some work with Teachers Teach Teachers in Moscow. And are Russian teachers different? I think Russian teachers that I've come across, what has struck me the most is how incredibly enthusiastic and committed they are. They're very committed to their own development. They're very committed to learning. They're very committed to finding new ideas, trying new things that will help their students. So that certainly impresses me, because a lot of us start off with that level of enthusiasm, and then as the years go by, people can get a little bit sort of blunt where they used to be sharp and just sort of giving the same lessons again and again and again. But the Russian teachers I'm working with don't do that at all.
I think here we are coming to an interesting topic of professional burnout, and I don't think Russian teachers are exceptional. and
No.
they do go through professional burnout. I've been reading a book recently called Mindset, which is an exciting book. And the idea is, if you have so-called fixed mindset and you are depressed, everybody can see you are depressed. When you have a growing mindset, you are depressed, nobody can see that you are depressed, because you are dealing with your depression productively, like you carry on doing what you are supposed to be doing, but you feel terribly anyway. Why do teachers start being burnt out? How does it start, Maureen? You love the job, you work for a cool organization, and then you feel, I don't like the organization anymore, and I can't articulate why. From your experience, you have wide experience of working in Hungary, in Spain, in London, being a teacher trainer, an academic director, union leader, trade union leader, so many roles. From your experience, how does and why does professional burnout start?
Well, I'm not an expert on burnout. There are a couple of people I know of who have done a lot of research in this area and are more expert than me, I would say. But I think one thing that can happen for language teachers is, yes, we start with this process of enthusiasm. We're very keen. We've done our initial qualification probably, or we've graduated. We're keen to put everything into practice. The first year, 2 years is always a kind of turbulent time for you when you take the theories and everything you learned at university, and you suddenly have a 5-day teaching week in a school, and you've got so much to learn. I think that what sometimes can happen with teachers and with organizations is that the demands are very high, and the expectations teachers put on themselves are very high. I think teachers beat themselves up incredibly if a lesson doesn't go well. And we've all had that situation where perhaps we've had 2 different classes at the same level, and we've taught a lesson with one class and it's gone fantastically well, and we've taught the same lesson with another class and it's bombed. It's been a disaster. And what I find quite interesting, and I notice it in myself as a teacher as well, is that if a lesson didn't go well, I would spend a lot of time thinking about, well, that didn't go well. Was the choice of material? Well, let me look back at my plan. Maybe I need to move that bit around. But I never did the same analysis with lessons that went well. I never thought, God, that lesson went well. What made that go so well? So I was always analysing my failures, if you like, and I was never analysing my successes in the same way. So I think that's a useful thing for teachers to do. It's the same as when you get student feedback. You get one piece of negative feedback from one student, and you can plan every subsequent lesson to address that one student's problems and just hope the other 18, 20 students will be okay. So I think teachers, and we don't think, well, I've got 19 pieces of positive feedback and 1 piece of negative feedback. We never give the same weight. Do you know what I mean? We never.
It is in your heart because it's so personal. Any negative feedback, we take it so personally. Well, because it's a mark, because it's a grade given to you by a different person, and we were trained that grades are important, and if you do not maintain having excellent grades, only A+ only for the rest of your life, every day you're a loser.
That's right, and I think also, it is a grade, but I think that teaching is a very personal profession. And I can, if I think of 10 teachers, I'm thinking of 10 different teaching styles. I'm thinking of 10 different approaches. They're all principled, they're all effective, but they're very, very different because they're 10 individuals. And I think because it's very personal, as a colleague once said to me, the classroom is a lonely place. It's you and your students. That in that place, which is quite controlled by you, If you get negative feedback on that, it's hard to divorce negative feedback on what you're doing professionally from negative feedback on you as a person. And it's that division we kind of have to bridge. I mean, burnout, I think, comes from a range of reasons. It can be lack of variety. It can be too much pressure. It can be increased demands. It can be not having a work-life balance. It can be caring for everybody else and not doing any self-care for yourself. And it can be not seeing any progression. And quite often, if you're teaching and you work in an organisation where there isn't a great deal of support or development, the road ahead of you is a pretty miserable looking one, isn't it? Because you're just going to get your classes every year. You're going to teach the same classes. You're probably going to teach the same course book. By year 5, you're so fed up with the whole thing, you're teaching the same lessons you taught last year. It doesn't matter if they're the same students or not. You don't care, because you just don't care anymore. And nobody's supporting you. So I think, all the research shows, doesn't it, that to improve learner outcomes, which is what we're all about as teachers, to improve learner outcomes, you need to invest in CPD and support for staff, because providing continuous professional development for staff in a supportive school environment helps those teachers provide better classes for their students, which improve their students' learning outcomes. And that's why we're here.
That's so exciting, because I've been researching for a long time, running language schools in Russia, and normally school owners overreact when something goes wrong, and sometimes we do not really analyze what went well, but we analyze a lot our weak points and try to improve them, and we do not pay enough attention, I think, to what went really well. Why did it go well?
Yeah.
How can it be progressed? How it can be multiplied in our company, this positive experience, and which leads to the same attitude of teachers to their job. I'm going to be punishing myself for one little problem I had in a lesson, and I'm not going to really analyze everything which went well and how I'm going to improve it and to run the next lesson even better, concentrating on my strong points, which leads me to the question of giving and receiving feedback, because teachers and managers can't really receive feedback very often. And managers, teachers, and students sometimes can't provide feedback properly, and sometimes feedback is poorly delivered.
Yeah.
That's why it's painful. But my problem is that in Russia, even according to the state law, we have to teach students soft skills. And we know it's a good skill. It's a good thing to teach students soft skills. And giving and receiving feedback is definitely, no questions about it, is the 21st century skill. Yeah. But teachers are struggling giving and receiving feedback. Administrative staff teaching are struggling of giving and receiving feedback. How can we teach our learners the skill we don't possess? That's a good question, which leads us to a bit, it's our main topic, which is the school culture, and we can't talk about school culture in a global perspective today. But let's tackle giving and receiving feedback. I think you have a lot to share. What's the problem with feedback in an organization? Because it's a huge problem when you observe a lesson and you have to give this sandwich feedback, which I think is super unproductive, because you have to artificially think something good about the lesson, productive feedback, which is normally what went wrong, and then you give some more positive feedback. And I think that's so artificial. You can't just tell people what you think, because they're not able to receive feedback, and you do not have any other techniques apart from sandwich feedback to deliver feedback. What's the problem?
Yes, I think you're completely right. And the sandwich feedback has quite a rude name in a lot of training circles in the UK that I know of.
Let's not share it, shall we?
I'm not sharing that at the moment, not in the first experimental stream at any case. I think one issue with giving feedback, if you like, is that observers aren't always trained in how to deliver feedback. So I think that's one thing. And you can self-train to an extent if you think back to when you were a teacher and you were observed, and what type of feedback was helpful for you and what type of feedback was not helpful for you. So even in the absence of any sort of formal training, you can undergo a sort of reflective self-training where you can make a note of this was helpful, this was helpful, this was helpful, this made me cry for a week, this made me furious, this was no help whatsoever, and think, well, what kind of observer do I want to be? Do I want to be that kind of observer, or do I want to be that kind of observer? I think that's quite helpful to put yourself back in that teaching position and think, what's helpful for me? I think there are two other key points for me when you're observing a teacher in the classroom. Let's keep it in that field for the moment. And your job is to observe and give that teacher feedback. The first issue, I think, is to remember that it is not your lesson. It is that teacher's lesson. So in feedback, it's not particularly helpful to say, you see, after the listening, what I would do is I would have done this, and I think you should have done that because I find this works very well, and da, da, da. But you're not trying to create a mini me, you're not trying to clone yourself. Your job as an observer is to ask questions to encourage that teacher to think, what did I do and why did I do it? And what, for me as an observer, what's interesting is you made that teaching decision. What led you to make that teaching decision? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm interested about. I'm interested in your thinking, because I'm looking at the students. I'm not looking at you as a kind of performance, doing everything. I'm looking at how you're facilitating it for the students, and that's what's interesting for me. So you made the decision, for example, to put the students into pairs then, and then you pulled them out of pairs very quickly. So talk to me about the decision about putting them in, and talk to me about the decision about putting them out. I'm interested in that. The second thing is, I think for quite a lot of observers, when we go in and observe a lesson, the lesson we observe is probably fine. It's probably fine. There are probably things we can discuss. There are things perhaps that could be more effective. The teacher, we can help them, or we can, by using questions, we can tease out things that maybe they could work on more. But I think it's really hard for an observer to say, thank you for letting me watch your lesson, it was fine. Because sometimes we have to justify our existence. And we have to say, we have to sort of, otherwise, why are we there? If we have to say, so people will say things, observers will say things like, yes, you need to do quite a bit more work on pronunciation. Well, yes, because you always need to do quite a bit more work on pronunciation. That's a kind of life statement, isn't it? But it's not particularly helpful for that teacher, because what are you doing? Are you going in to click a snapshot of that teacher and give them feedback on that snapshot? Or are you going in and thinking, in this lesson I saw you do this like this, so talk to me about you as a teacher. Is this how you generally approach this type of activity? Did you approach it with this class for a particular reason? Would you do it the same next time with this class, with a different class? What would make the difference? So I think for an observer, it's not about you, it's about those students and what that teacher's doing with those students. That's what's interesting for us. And I think if you take that approach, that you're not giving feedback, but you're talking to teachers about teaching, I much prefer framing it that way.
And that's quite tricky, because sometimes trust-based, and it's called trust-based observation system, trust-based observations can be created together with teachers and admin staff and academic staff, or they can be given by the owner from the top to the bottom, and we are going to face absolutely different attitudes to the same systems. So what we adopted at the Dmitry Nikitin School, working a lot with you, Maureen, on our observation system, working with David Riddell and with our wonderful observation team, contains of Svetlana, Elena, and Anastasia. And then we discussed it with all the teachers, and then we launched a trust-based observation system at our organization. We took a general approach of coaching. So we ask questions. We ask questions. It's more like mentoring and coaching. We do not give answers, because we simply don't know the right answers. We do know the right answer if the word is mispronounced, and we can give this feedback, and the teacher is supposed to receive this feedback without any personal pain, because we all make grammar mistakes. Non-natives, we all make grammar mistakes. We all can misinterpret the word, but that's fine. But then, talking about methodology and pedagogy, we ask questions before the observation, after the observation, we ask questions, and then we create reports, and then we work with reports, and then we try to run research based on what we saw. So observed lesson is not a verdict. It's a process, and it's a continuous process of research and school development and personal development as well. One example, talking about lesson plans, we said no to Mickey Mouse Celta style lesson plans. And there is nothing wrong with Celta lesson plans. Some people love it. Some people don't love it because they do not fit their learning styles. And some people may create a mind map of a lesson. Others draw timelines of lessons. Others, like famous Hugh Della and Andrew Walkley, they just take notes on the margins of their books, and that's their lesson plan, and that's a solid, good lesson plan. And we collected like 20 different types of lesson plans, just asking teachers before the lesson, could you take a picture of a lesson plan you really make? Because there are no doubts you create lesson plan. It's impossible to run a solid lesson without a lesson plan, but you can do it differently. Show us how you do it. And that was so interesting, and life became better. And we've been talking about this painful topic for many teachers, and exciting topic, and the best form of CPD, called observation. But we have like 4 minutes to talk about other kind of feedback, and it's feedback of managers to teachers, feedback of admin staff like office managers, secretaries, marketing people, to teachers, and feedback from teachers to managers, and from teachers to academic staff, because there's a huge gap. There are Star Wars ongoing between academic staff members and admin staff members. Any cases in 4 minutes you can share of creating productive feedback between these two parts of the school, which are normally very different, very often, unfortunately, very different. And that's a question. I think that's a question.
Excuse me. I think the starting point for me, and part of the work we've been doing, Dmitry Sergeyevich, with your teams, is it's quite important for those two different groups to A, know who the other people are, and B, understand what the other people do. Because it's very easy if you are in one group, if you're in an admin group, because I started work in language school as a receptionist, you know, a million years ago. And that was my first job. And I still feel very protective of all school administrators, because that's where I started. That's all I look after them. But I do remember it was very easy for administrative staff to sit and go, bloody teachers, never fill their registers in, never do this. I don't know how many times we've asked them to do that and they never do it. And then when I did my teacher training course, the precursor of the CELTA, and I was in the staff room, I was hearing, bloody admin staff, do they think we've got nothing better to do? Why should I do their job for them? They can fill in a report. Why do I have to fill in a report? I'm a creative person. I'm a teacher, darling. And this lack of understanding of what the other groups do and the value it brings to an organisation is crucial. It's crucial because I'll give you an example. When I worked in a large language school in London, I think you know which one, and there are two.
The big one.
A big one.
The famous one.
Two people in this story. One was the person who was then the director, and the other was the person who was then the staff room assistant. And the director was away on a trip, a business trip, for 3.5 weeks, and I can truthfully say that nobody even noticed. The staff room assistant was off sick for 2 days, and everybody went into meltdown because he was the only person who knew how to put toner in the photocopier. And without him, everything collapsed. Now, of course, you can extrapolate from this tale in many ways, but I think the value of what each employee brings to the organisation is something you have to recognise and understand, and not think that because you are in one group rather than another, that makes you superior or better or inferior. We're all just people on the planet, and we're all just trying to do the best we can do. And you can do it a little bit by, admin staff can go into classes and see what happens in the classes. They would do that anyway, because they're often explaining the classes to parents or clients. And teachers can sit behind the reception desk and see what the admin staff have to deal with, or they can sit in an admin meeting. The more you know the people you work with and what they have to do, and you come from a position of professional respect and equality, then you're not going to deliver your feedback in a snidey way or a nasty way, because you know who those people are. So that would always be my first starting point in any attempt to get a positive feedback cycle going in a school, would be, who are these people?
And I think I've been thinking of a lot of philosophical things to share at the end. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be as practical as possible. I think that the first step you can really do is to create an environment where administrative staff members and teachers work together in a certain frame. Let's say at the Dmitry Nikitin school, we meet bi-weekly for 90 minutes, and everybody should be present. And because our academic director doesn't speak Russian, can you imagine that? We have to run the meeting in 2 languages, but we run the meeting in 2 languages because admin staff members do not necessarily speak English. They don't have to. Teachers of other languages don't have to speak English. So we took a methodical approach, and we run meetings in 2 languages. And I think it's even better for understanding, review is important, isn't it? But this is where the magic happens. Because first we started talking to each other, then at some point we started shouting at each other, and then we came to storming, norming, performing, and then we came to performing stage. And now I think we are at a very productive performing stage when admin staff members and teachers work in the same teams, and at least they have this environment where they can work with each other. And I think that's great, because I saw many schools where teachers have to spend like endless hours every week on methodology training, on language training, and what admin staff gets, Excel training or Amos CRM training nowadays.
That's right, they get compliance training, don't they?
Compliance training.
Data entry training.
How to deal with difficult customers training.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to spend 12 hours on a chair,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
set of exercise. And I think that's really important. That's really important to have these kind of meetings,
Yeah.
and then you start talking, and the school is becoming a better place, because admin staff members start thinking, wow, they are really doing some work for the school, like demo lessons. Teachers run demo lessons, teachers talk to parents. That's maybe not their job, maybe their job, but in our organization, that's a done thing. And teachers start thinking, oh, office managers spend 5 days learning TEFL and IELTS descriptions by heart because they have to talk to customers. Is that really their job to understand how CFR works? No, it's not, but they're doing it. And we are coming to, I can't live without it, Maureen, philosophical idea of being T-shaped people when you have your key competence, which is teaching, but then you have a bit of marketing and a bit of dealing with people. You have your key competence, accountant, and you have academic competence and a bit of, I don't know, human resources competence. So, and these people are called, I've learned about yesterday, I'm so excited, from specialists who are living in their little, what's the word for the barrels?
Or silo, yeah.
Silos, they live in their silos. And we are moving to their new job, which are called not specialists, but generalists.
Yeah.
And if generalists have nothing to do for a certain period of time, they are ready to help other people.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
And it fits in much better with more modern views of organizational culture and organizational structure as well, you know, because you're I think what we have is actually we have two layers. You always have to have your specialism, you know, because teachers need to be teachers and accountants need to be accountants. So you are a specialist with a generalist cloak, if you like. So you would take off your cloak when you're operating in your specialism, and you put your cloak on when you can perhaps support other people in their areas. Yeah. And that's a good closing philosophical statement you made there.
And the only thing that frightens me that sometimes people can listen to talks like ours, they're back to their organization, they write, in Russian we call it the order, prikaz, and people sign the order, and the order tells, from tomorrow you are all generalists and we are working in T-shaped. It's not working like that. It took us a year to start talking. So it took us a year to start a long conversation, but we are very proud of this year, and I hope the life became a bit happier at the Dmitry Nikitin School, thanks only to the meetings we introduced bi-weekly, where all staff members can talk about school culture, school projects, and how to make the school a place where everybody wins and where we can create an environment which is good for all stakeholders, for teachers, for admin staff members, for parents, for students, for owners, for the city, for subcontractors, for the world. Thank you very much, Maureen, for your time. I can imagine how hectic your life is. Thank you for visiting us.
Thank you for inviting me.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
There are gossip that Christopher Graham is going to be the next guest in 2 weeks.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Have a very good day. Bye.